The phone in your pocket right now was born in a hole in the ground in Congo. Not metaphorically. Actually. There's a good chance the battery keeping you scrolling contains cobalt that was dug out by hand in the DRC by someone who will never own a smartphone. Here's the number that should stop you. The ground underneath the Democratic Republic of Congo holds an estimated $24 trillion in untapped mineral wealth. That's not a typo. That's roughly the size of the entire U.S. stock market's gains over the last decade, sitting under one country's soil. Cobalt, copper, lithium, coltan, the exact ingredients your iPhone, your EV, and every green energy promise on Earth are built from. And yet the DRC is one of the poorest countries on the planet, average income under $1,000 a year. So here's the question that actually matters, and it's not the question most videos ask. It's not, why is Congo poor despite having so much? That's the lazy version. The real question is, where exactly does the value go, and who built the system that routes it away? Because once you follow the money step by step, you realize this isn't bad luck. It's not a curse. It's a machine, engineered link by link, and it's running exactly as designed. Let's take it apart. Every mineral on Earth climbs a staircase between rock and product, and each step up that staircase is where the real money gets made. Step 1. Raw ore. A chunk of dirt with maybe 1 to 2% cobalt in it, almost worthless on its own. Step 2. Concentrate. Crush it, wash it, and you get something like 10 to 20% cobalt. Now it's worth something. Step 3. Refined metal. Cobalt hydroxide turned into battery-grade cobalt sulfate, 99.8% pure. This is where a kilogram goes from being dirt to being industrial gold. Step 4. The finished product. A battery cell, a phone, a Tesla. Here's the part nobody tells you. The DRC mines the minerals, but almost never climbs the staircase. The country produces roughly 70% of the world's cobalt. It refines almost none of it. Around 99% of what the DRC exports leaves the country as a semi-processed intermediate, cobalt hydroxide, essentially cobalt-flavored mud, not the finished battery-grade product that actually commands the world price. So picture this. Congo does the hardest, most dangerous, most labor-intensive part of the entire chain, literally pulling the rock out of the earth, and gets paid for the cheapest step on the staircase. Then that half-finished material gets shipped out, refined somewhere else, and sold back into the global economy at 10 times the price, with Congo never seeing a cent of that markup. That's not a side effect of the system. That's the entire business model. Let's make this concrete. Follow 1 kilogram of cobalt. It starts with a cruiser, an artisanal miner, digging by hand in a pit outside Kolwezi, in the copper-cobalt belt of southern Congo. Studies put the average daily income for these miners somewhere between $2 and $10 a day, and a huge share of them earn below the country's own legal minimum wage. Some of that cobalt is dug by children. This isn't a fringe detail. It's a documented, persistent feature of the supply chain. That kilogram gets sold to a local trading post, often for a fraction of its eventual worth, because the miner has no scale, no lab to verify purity, and no leverage. From there, it moves into the formal export chain, increasingly through mines majority owned by Chinese firms. Because here's a fact that surprises people. China doesn't just buy Congo's cobalt. It increasingly owns the mines that produce it, and it owns roughly 70% of the world's cobalt refining capacity. That's the choke point. You can dig up all the cobalt on Earth. If you don't control the refineries, you don't control the price. The raw material ships out, often through ports thousands of miles from where it was dug, because Congo, notably, is landlocked in this exact region. Gets refined in China into battery-grade material, gets built into a battery cell, gets assembled into a phone or a car, and gets sold back into the global market at a price that has almost nothing to do with what the miner was paid. By the time that atom of cobalt is sitting in your pocket, its value has grown by orders of magnitude. And the country it came from captured a sliver of that growth, the sliver from the very first, cheapest step on the staircase. Now here's where it gets more interesting than rich countries exploit poor countries, because if it were that simple, it'd be easy to fix. The mechanism is more specific than that. and it's built into the paperwork. In 2008, the DRC signed one of the most consequential deals in its modern history, the Sicomines Agreement. The pitch was elegant. Chinese state-linked companies would build roads, hospitals, and railways across Congo, and in exchange, they'd get mining rights to some of the richest cobalt and copper deposits on the continent. Minerals for infrastructure. On paper, a fair trade. In practice, the joint venture ended up roughly 68% owned by Chinese partners, and independent audits later found the value of minerals flowing out dwarfed the value of infrastructure flowing in. So much so that Congo's own oversight body had to fight, years later, just to renegotiate the terms and claw back billions in additional revenue it was originally owed. And Sicomines is just the visible version. The quieter version happens through something called transfer pricing. Multinational companies selling minerals between their own subsidiaries at artificially low prices, so the profit shows up on a balance sheet in a tax haven, instead of in Kinshasa. The UN estimates Africa loses somewhere around $50 billion a year to this kind of tax avoidance alone, and closer to $89 billion a year total to illicit financial outflows, much of it tied to commodity trade. That's not aid Africa isn't getting. That's money that was earned, on African soil, by African labor, and never arrived. So the trap isn't just physical. Dig it up, ship it out. It's contractual. It's written into joint venture ownership splits, into export contracts, into accounting entries that route the profit to wherever the taxes are lowest and the shareholders are. Here's the moment where this stops being a Congo story and becomes a design story. This pattern: extract the raw material where labor is cheap, refine it where capital and technology already exist, sell the finished product back at a markup, isn't unique to Cobalt, and it isn't unique to Congo. It's the same architecture behind oil, cocoa, coffee, gold, lithium in half a dozen other countries. Economists have a name for it: the resource curse. But curse makes it sound like fate, like bad luck, like nobody's responsible. It's a supply chain that was built, deal by deal, contract by contract, refinery by refinery, over decades. And every actor in it, from colonial-era mining concessions to modern joint ventures, made a rational choice to keep the highest value step as far from the source as possible. Because whoever controls the refining step controls the price. Whoever controls the price controls the profit. And right now, that's not Congo. This is the contradiction sitting at the center of the entire green energy transition. The world needs Congo's cobalt to build a cleaner future, and the system built to extract that cobalt is a nearly perfect copy of the extractive systems from a century ago, just with lithium-ion batteries instead of rubber and spreadsheets instead of gunboats. So is anything actually shifting? A little. In 2024 and into 2025, the DRC government started restricting exports of raw, unprocessed copper and cobalt concentrate, essentially saying, if you want our minerals, you now have to do more of the processing here or pay us more for the privilege. It's a small move up the staircase, forcing more value add to happen inside the country instead of outside it. New mining code rules also now require 51% Congolese ownership of certain subcontracted mining services, trying to keep more of the service economy around mining, trucking, supply, logistics, inside local hands. Will it work? Contested. Refining capacity takes billions in capital and years to build, and the companies that currently profit from the old arrangement have every incentive to slow-walk that transition. But it's the correct fight because it's aimed at the actual mechanism, not the myth of a curse, but the concrete, ownable, negotiable structure of who controls which step on the staircase. So next time you check your phone, that's worth sitting with for a second. Somewhere in that battery is a piece of Congo. Somewhere in that supply chain, a system decided that the person who dug it up gets paid in single dollars a day, and the country that owns it gets a fraction of what that mineral is ultimately worth. Not because the wealth isn't there. It's there, $24 trillion of it. The trap was never about scarcity. It's about who gets to own the step where the value actually gets made. If this kind of story, the hidden mechanics behind the things we use every day, is your kind of rabbit hole, subscribe, because this is exactly the kind of system I like taking apart. And let me know in the comments, what's the next supply chain you want unpacked?